going. 1, 2, 3. Is it going? Yes, it is. Look at that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Squirrel Squadron. Welcome to squirrelsquadron.com, where you can find me and all my materials and all my ideas and thoughts and events and everything else. If you're not sure where you are, you're at the Squirrel Squadron. That's my community of tech and non-tech people working together to figure out how to make technology insanely profitable. And I got lots of ideas on how to do that, most particularly by working less and doing less stuff. So you might be coming here thinking, gosh, I'm going to get more out of my engineers. I'm going to make them work harder. I'm going to crack the whip harder. If you came for that, you came to the wrong place. So check out some other videos probably around me here someplace on LinkedIn or YouTube. There's lots about how to get more time out of your engineers, out of your sales team, out of your customer service. I'm going to talk about how to get more productivity with less time. So I have lots of examples of how to do that, stories and ideas, and you have questions you fired at me. If you're here on the live stream live, please say who you are and what brought you here. So just say hi in the comments, wherever that is, on whatever magical streaming platform you might see me on. If you do that, then you'll be all ready to ask me questions as we go, and you can argue with me and tell me I'm wrong and get some new ideas. That would be great. And I will know what the motivation is of the people who are here, so I can try to tailor what I say to you on that topic. It's as much two-way communication as we can do in this format. We have lots of other two-way communication in the squadron, all free. So I do these weekly free events. We've got exciting ones coming up. Laura will put up a little banner of them. We've got next week root cause analysis. We're figuring out what went wrong at things like CrowdStrike and Marks and Spencer, which has not had any food on the shelves here in Britain for about 3-4 months due to ransomware. What went wrong there? What should we do about it? What should we analyze or find out how to fix? We're doing another one for non-execs. We've just been having a great discussion on the forum where people are discussing 24 hours a day, all kinds of other folks from around the world communicate and talk about how to make tech profitable. We were just discussing, and I'm having a debate with a brilliant community member named Steve about HS2, which is a big rail project here in Britain that has kind of gone sideways. They were building the rails this way, and man, those rails are not going where they're supposed to. And lots of other folks, as Steve pointed out, have made high-speed rail really work for them. I used to ride on the high-speed rail in Germany when I lived there. Somehow we haven't got it right in Britain. Why not? What's gone wrong? There's a big discussion about that and how to learn lessons from that are relevant to technology projects. We're also discussing funny words and what they mean and why engineers use them. There's one, blivet, which I had not seen in a long time. It turns out to have about 20 different meanings to hackers and programmers. So if you want to learn the lingo, if you want to discuss how to make your projects more successful, the squadron is the place to do that. So thanks to Laura for making all this work and coming along to this event and making sure that it's running well. We have loads more events. We have a live one in London. I didn't even remember to mention that. Middle of September, we're doing an event on how to get communication across the C-suite. So lots coming up in the squadron. Would love to see all of you at all of those kinds of events. So we have comments and questions, which I'll deal with, but let me start with a story. Actually, a couple of stories. So the first one is about a person who was parking his car at a valet parking lot. So I remember reading this story. I can't source it. So if you know who told this story, I remember reading it on a blog and thinking, this is just such a perfect example of the idea I want to get across. But I haven't been able to find it again. So if you know who to give credit to, I'd love to. But this person, whoever he or she was driving their car along and came to a place where they were going to park, but it's valet parking. So somebody's coming along, they're going to take your keys, get in your car, drive your car to some place to park it, and you come back and you get your car back. Very nice service, very helpful, I'm sure, particularly when it's raining. It's pouring with rain out here in Britain right now. If I was going to park my car somewhere, I'd like some valet parking. Sounds like a good plan. So this person pulls up to the place where the sign says valet parking, come here. And she looks around. She says, wait, where's the person? There's supposed to be someone who comes over here and takes my car, but there's no one standing there. probably because it's raining. I suspect this is a story I read about Britain. But there's also not sort of a place for someone to wait or any kind of indicator. So she's kind of confused looking around, and she notices a little hut, and it's a place where someone is waiting clearly to help you with your car. But it's not right there where the sign says valet parking here. It's a little ways away. And she says, that's weird. Why put the hut over there and have the valet parking over here? And so then she notices there's a person who's come out of the hut, noticed that she's driven up, and that person is running, jogging along, moving fast. And then that person jumps over a hedge in order to get to her. And she says, wow, this person's really committed to getting over here to me and helping me with my valet parking. And this is nice. And so the person comes up to her, says, hi, ma'am, glad to see you here. Thanks for your keys, gets in the car, drives it off slowly and carefully and parks the car. And she says, this is rather a nice service. Then she wrote a blog post about it because she remembered, she noticed something later. She said, hang on a second. Somebody built that car park. They put it there for some reason, and they put the sign there that said valet parking here, and they put the hut over there. They did that for a reason. And they also put a hedge there. They didn't have to put a hedge there. They could have put the hut closer. They could have put no hedge there. Nice path. They did that for a reason. And her suspicion was, and my suspicion was, it was to show hustle. Now, hustle is a word that gets misused a lot. First of all, it gets used to mean hustling or cheating somebody. So that's not the kind of hustle I mean. A card sharp or somebody who's cheating at poker or something, that they hustle you, or a used car salesman. That's not what we're talking about. But often I will hear, and I just heard it this past week, a CEO or somebody who's investing in a company or something like that says, there's just not enough hustle around here. Those engineers or those salespeople or whoever it is, they're not making enough phone calls. There's not enough typing. There's not enough features. There's not enough stuff. We need to show more hustle. And I think that might have happened to the owner of this car park, that somebody came along and said, your staff, they're kind of lazy. They don't get over there quickly. They don't do anything. And so I don't know if this is true, but I like to believe that the owner of this car park said, we're going to have a physical manifestation of the hustle that we want to show to our customers, that we're going to be enthusiastic. We're going to get their cars parked quickly. We care about them. We want to get them out of the rain. And so we're going to build the hut over there, move the hut, build a little hedge, and train the staff to run. Now, they don't have to run and get hurt or anything. The hedge is low, so we're not going to do anything dangerous. We're not asking them to do anything onerous. But let's have them have a way to show their hustle. And it won't take any longer because, if they've been sat in the hut, they might have gradually, slowly got up and walked over. They're going to be in the hut farther away. They're going to come running over at top speed. And so it won't take any longer. These folks aren't working longer hours. They're just showing their hustle. And I think this is a very useful lesson for us to think about when we're considering how long employees should work. Now, I'll tell you another story, which is very related, and then I'll try to bring them together. This is from a year or two into my consulting, so I'm relatively new to it. And I was working with a development team who was really showing a lot of hustle. They were working hard, getting features done. I'd shown them some new mechanisms and ways to experiment and learn faster, and they were doing that well. But then somebody in the business, I think it was the CEO, if I remember right, came to me and said, Squirrel, we got a problem. We got some really unhappy customer service and salespeople because these folks are going into the lunchroom. Remember when people used to go into offices? Everybody remember that? Long ago when we had offices. This is back in that time. And so there was a lunchroom right there, and the customer service people are there answering phones, helping customers. The salespeople are picking up phones saying, bye, bye, bye. And next to them is the lunchroom. And in the lunchroom, the developers are playing chess. And they're having a great time playing chess, and they're beating each other and banging the clock and doing all the things that chess players do on their lunch break. And the CEO said, "This doesn't look very good, Squirrel. This doesn't show very much hustle. These engineers really should be working super hard and getting all this stuff done. And these people are doing work that they don't have to do. If the engineers would get these other things done, they could fix it. And gee, we're not very happy about what these engineers are doing. Can you stop them playing chess?" So I went and investigated a little bit. I found out what they were doing. I sat and watched them play chess. I asked them some questions. And what turned out was happening was the engineers needed a break. And this is a theme that'll come up many times here. When you're doing complex knowledge work, and that's not just software engineering, by the way, those salespeople and those customer service people probably had similar types of breaks. Just wasn't quite as visible or as loud as playing chess and cheering for checkmating the other person. But the engineers needed a break in order to be creative and thoughtful so that they could work long hours. Because in fact, what they were doing was going home, and this wasn't quite as prevalent then, people didn't know it as well. They were going home and working a little bit longer and getting things done. They were actually quite efficient in getting a lot of work done, but they needed a break, because if you don't take a break when you're thinking hard, your brain is just going to get very, very full and tired and unable to think anymore. You won't have creative ideas. In fact, I've often said that, in the 10th hour, the engineer starts beginning to remove more value than they add, because they're just writing bugs. It's the only thing they're creating. Same thing if you try to sit there and make phone calls all day to sell. Your 100th phone call is going to be nowhere near as high quality as your second, right? And the same is true for customer service answering phones, for operations people running the service, finance people doing the cash flow reports. Whatever it is you're doing, you're going to start subtracting value at a certain moment. And these engineers were smart. They said, I'm starting to subtract value. I'm getting to the point where I'm tired. I need a break. Chess is a great change of pace. It's lots of fun. I'm having a great time playing chess, and I'm going to go do that. And then I will do more work, and I can even have more energy to do some more in the evening. Now, why do I tell you these two stories when the title of the session is the 20-hour week? Neither of these groups of people are necessarily working 20-hour weeks. The point is the idea of hustle, that what you are doing and how you are doing it, how you deliver the service you're delivering, is often much, much more important than how many hours you do it. Now, there are certain people at certain big four consultancies, so you guys know who you are, who have this exactly reversed. And what they will often do is hire young, bright, brilliant people straight out of big name universities and say, the more hours you work, the better. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, Japanese culture also has this characteristic, although they're getting smarter about it. The salary men, often men, are rewarded and observed by their peers, and the goal is just to be at your desk. Doesn't matter whether you're actually producing any value. If you're subtracting value at these big consultancies, that's okay. But the thing is, you want to be there till midnight. If your boss is there till 1, you need to be there till 2. It's this kind of culture. The opposite of hustle, right? Because what you're not doing is running fast from the hut and jumping over the hedge. What you're doing is just sort of showing, hey, wait a minute, I'm here. So I must be doing something, and I'm here longer than other people, so I must be more productive. You're not. That's my message. So some folks will have looked at the title of this and said, oh my God, what do you mean a 20-hour week? If I let my team do a 20-hour week, they never get anything done. They're doing a 40-hour week now, and they're not getting enough. I want them to do 50 or 60. I'd like them to be here more. Wrong. That's not going to help you. What's going to help you much more is to get hustle and to get results from your team during the time when they're actually working. Because here's the secret. They're actually only working 20 hours. Even if you're asking them to work 40, they're going to be doing other things, and they're going to be taking breaks if they have any brains at all. Otherwise, they're just subtracting value, and you should probably fire them, or at least train them not to do it. So I'm going to make more of the case for that. I'm going to make that clearer as we go. But I thought I would establish that early, that there's a difference between hours sat in the seat and hustle that when you're showing not only that you're not only doing the work well. Remember that person in the car park, parked the car well, came up and was polite to the person and so on, did a good job, but also showed it, had an opportunity to say, here's how I'm doing this well, without taking any longer to do it. So that's the value of hustle. By the way, I didn't tell the engineers to stop playing chess. I just explained to the other folks what they were doing, showed their value, and said, this is healthy. You should come play chess with them. Some of them did. So that worked out pretty well. Okay, if you have questions or thoughts, or you disagree with me, or you say, oh my God, Squirrel, I think hustle is a way of abusing people. I think this is a bad thing. That would be great. So put that in the comments. I'd love to discuss it with you. I know we have some questions already that I'm going to be dealing with, so I will be picking those up at an appropriate moment. So don't worry, your question isn't lost. I'm going to be working with it. Disagreements are also welcome. Please argue with me. I like that very much. Okay. So now let me come to another client that I was working with. This is much more recent. I was evaluating their technology team and helping them to see some ways they could do some things more efficiently. So I was interviewing lots of folks and talking with them about the work they were doing, how they do it, what they're doing. And they were coming out pretty good. They had really excellent practices. They were really listening to their customers. They had good tests, so they were sure their software worked. They were monitoring it well. They had good leadership. I was marking off my scorecard. Pretty good scores there. I was reasonably happy with what they were doing. Unfortunately, I had missed something, and this was a very important fact about them. And I discovered this fact when they came along and said, "Oh, Squirrel, you've booked a session with us for Friday. We don't work on Friday." I said, "What? You don't work on Friday? What do you mean? Isn't Friday a weekday? Are you in a country where Friday is a day off? Should I meet you on Sunday?" They said, No. We take a 3-day weekend every week, the whole company." I said, "What do you do if your customers phone you?" They said, "Well, we have a skeleton crew. We have people who come in and take care of urgent things on Fridays because the rest of the world seems to work on Friday. We don't." And so that's a benefit of our company. It makes it very attractive to people, especially who have families and who have obligations and things they'd like to do on Friday. And you know what? We haven't lost a step of productivity. And I said, "Yeah, because I didn't even notice it." You guys didn't. If you hadn't happened to mention that you couldn't meet me on a Friday, I would have written up my whole report, described everything that you were doing, and said, "This team's doing a great job. Keep doing it. Here's some ways to improve and build on your success." I would never have known that they were working 4-day weeks, which I guess would come out to be about a 32-hour week, right? If we're working to the 8-hour day. And after I saw that, I really reflected on it and reflected back on also the hustle examples I was talking about, where people are showing the value of their work. These guys really were, right? Their results were visible every day. And it wasn't just the engineering team. The sales folks were getting out there, finding new leads. The marketing people were creating content and getting qualified people through the door. Everybody was producing at a level that you would have expected from a company working 5-day weeks. They just happened to be doing it in 4. Now, we could go into depth on this, and if you want to ask me questions about how they did it, exactly what they did, and so on, I'm happy to answer those. But I just wanted to offer you this example that more and more folks are trying this. There are whole countries that are doing experiments with this to see, can you do a 4-day week and be just as productive? I would argue you could do a 3-day week and be just as productive. If anybody would like to try that, please get in touch. I'd be happy to help you, and maybe we can do a case study together on how successful that was, why it was successful, or maybe it won't be. Maybe it'll be an experiment that has a negative result. But I would predict that, in fact, if you did a 3-day week, about 24 hours of total work from each person, you would actually get just the same productivity. And you would, in fact, probably get more. You'd have higher quality people. They'd be happier. They would do a better job for you, because here's the secret: they're actually only working that much. And I told you the chess story, so you could think yourself, gee, people in my team, how much are they actually working? And if you really were honest with yourself, if you set up a video camera, don't do this. You'll probably get in trouble and your team won't like it. But just imagine, thought experiment for a moment. Set up a video camera that kind of follows people around, get a drone or something. So you follow someone and you watch them. They go to the toilet, they eat lunch, they have chats with their colleagues about, I think the women's football team has been doing well here. I don't follow this, but I hear that's a big exciting thing here in Britain. I'm sure there's American football or baseball or something that's doing exciting stuff. So they have discussions about those things, or really interesting stuff like cricket. And they have interactions that build relationships, but that aren't fingers on keyboards, voices on phones, that aren't producing business results that you can see and feel and touch. And if they were filling in an honest timesheet, nobody ever fills in an honest timesheet, taking account of all these things, they would actually come up with, I predict, about 20 hours a week. I got that idea from a guy called Alan Weiss, by the way, who's very clever on these things. And I'm going to expand more on that later on. Another practice that people have tried, which I did want to mention, is unlimited holidays. So I have clients that use this practice, and guess what? People don't abuse it. You would think that if you said, look, you don't have, as we have here in Europe, 20, 25 days a year of holiday, or I don't understand how Americans do it, but the Americans apparently have like only 1 or 2 weeks holiday each year, and I don't know how their brains don't explode, but we're not going to have that either. What we're going to have is as much holiday as you want if you get your work done. And you might think people would say, well, I'm going to hurry through my work and, just take 3 weeks off and therefore abuse the system. They don't. And it's very interesting that all the examples I know of, and I've had quite a few clients who use a practice like this, not so many with the 4-day week, but the results are similar. People don't abuse it. They do get their work done. They do sometimes catch people who just aren't doing a good job. And of course, those people leave. But that's because the person isn't performing. It's not because they're abusing the holiday or abusing the 4-day week. And I just think that's a really interesting comment, both on how paternalistic typical organizations are. We're going to be your parent. We're going to make sure you do work. We're going to sit you down so you do your homework. Doesn't actually produce very much with kids. It turns out it doesn't produce a great result with employees either. You don't get a lot of hustle. But what you see in these organizations consistently is that hustle. So in some sense, having a constrained time to work can actually have the effect of creating more opportunities for hustle, more results, more visibility, in addition to greater output. It's sort of like putting the hut farther away with the hedge in between. Another wonderful client, this is Ben, who's in the squadron, retired now because his company did so well. He was able to sell it and retire. But Ben, consistently, I watched him do this as I worked with him. He would watch the clock in the office, and he would walk over to the master switch in the electrical breaker box. Forget the kind of switches for the lights and things like that. He walked to the master switch for the whole office, and he switched it off at 5:01. And you better save your work, or else Ben was going to turn off the electricity to the entire office. And so he would force people to keep to a reasonable set of hours. He would not let them work more than a reasonable, a healthy amount for knowledge work, because it's so important when you're doing work that requires deep thinking that you take a lot of breaks. Your brain needs time to recover. So I just thought that was a fascinating example, again, of sort of anti-paternalism, like paternalism in your favor, saying, wait a minute, you must stop. Again, that team was tremendously productive. They were really junior, but Ben managed to train them up really effectively, and his results were tremendous. Right, his company did very, very well and sold at a tremendous premium. He did a great job. Okay, so I'm going to turn to some questions now because we've had a bunch come in. Let me go and find those. Those are over here. No, sorry, I have to find exactly where they went. There they went. Okay, super. So Jessica, a wonderful client of mine, asks, what's the way to enable co-working teamwork in a 20-hour work week? Well, just the same as any place else. So the common thing that we have in the engineering world is pair programming. Well, it's not as common as I would like it to be, but that is a way that people do teamwork. In Jessica's world, she's got lawyers and other folks like that who are working with her. And I suspect she wants them also to pair or to work together. Nothing stops you doing that, and you're probably going to be much more effective at it. Certainly something I know from the engineering world, and I believe it's the same elsewhere. I certainly know it's true for sales, for example, is that pairing is much more tiring. So imagine you're sitting next to somebody and you're doing a complex job. You're having to think very thoroughly and deeply. And you have a friend who's helping you. So that person is, when you pause to think, that person says, oh, wait a minute, we can try this. We can add this text. We can add this routine. We can change this parameter. And so they grab the keyboard and start typing that in. And you then say, oh, okay, now that gives me an idea. And you grab it back. And you put an idea, and you might have worked with somebody like this in whatever job you do, and it's very productive. It's a great state of flow, and you really learn a lot, and you're completely exhausted when you're done because you don't get the same kind of natural breaks. The other person has an idea when you might be taking a break and thinking about the football or thinking about the nice lunch you're going to have or how you're going to play chess and beat the other person. Those sorts of things, those sorts of natural breaks that your brain just kind of healthily takes when it works by itself, does not come along when you are working with someone else. So it's extra important to do something that's like what Ben and the 4-day work week people and so on have done, the examples I was giving you, to make sure that you enforce breaks, you enforce recovery periods and not working as hard, because you're getting more out of the people, right? You're getting a greater result. Your briefs are getting written faster or more effectively, or your templates are coming out with higher quality. assuming that's the case, and of course you want to measure that, you don't want people malingering or manipulating the system, but that doesn't actually happen very often, especially if you take care of them. And Jessica, I know you have unlimited holiday, which I think has mostly not been abused. You're welcome to comment and say, yes, it has. So, Squirrel, you missed something. But I certainly saw great results from your company when I was working with you very recently. Okay, so Jessica, I hope that was helpful to you. Now let me switch back over here. It's a little bit of screen shifting here. Amanda asks, great question. What's the best way to help passionate employees be mindful of limiting their working hours and energy and communicating this within your culture continuously? Well, I'll tell you, Amanda, my favorite way is to enforce it in the rules and the behavior and the norms that are enforced. And I gave you the extreme example of Ben from the community, who actually would walk over to the master switch and turn everybody's computer off. Now, you don't have to go that far, Amanda. There are lots of other things that you could do. So I've seen companies that, Swedish companies. I remember I had a company that had brought in a Swedish, I forget what she was. She was somewhere in the middle management, but she was Swedish, and she said, in Sweden, we have this thing called fika. I might be pronouncing it wrong. If you're Swedish, please correct me. But what fika is a chance to eat biscuits. And we do it in the middle of the afternoon. And everybody in the company stops and eats biscuits. Now, the funny thing is, when I've been to Sweden, and I have been, I didn't notice that everybody was really fat. I would think that if everybody's eating biscuits in the middle of the afternoon, there would be a nation of rather obese people. But apparently it's not. Maybe they all go skiing. I'm not sure. But for whatever reason, the Swedish culture is very effective on this. And guess what? You had the CEO talking with the new hire in marketing, and you had the engineers talking with a salesperson while they ate biscuits and drank some tea. And this was very effective. So, Amanda, you could set up a fika for your team and set a time and say there's biscuits here, but you would need to enforce it. And just like kind of erecting the hedge made people jump over it, or turning off the switch at the wall required people to actually stop at 5:01, you would need to make sure that that was not something people ignored. Because unfortunately, in certain cultures, America is bad for this, Britain is even worse. Some cultures are not like this, like Sweden. There's a kind of Calvinist point of view where people say, well, I'm going to skip the fika, I'm going to skip the lunch, I'm not going to play chess, because I'm the big, important, hardworking person. I'm going to get the reward. I'll get the promotion. And you want the opposite of that culture. You want someone to say, I'm going to produce a lot. And in order to produce a lot, I'm going to work closely with other people, like Jessica asked about. I'm going to take breaks that will promote good results, and I'm going to be measured on my results. So, Amanda, I hope that's some helpful ideas that you could use. Of course, if you want to enforce a 20-hour week, you should talk to me about that, because I really think that, about 3 days is what you're actually getting from your team anyway. Let's be honest about that. Let's see. Jessica says the biggest problem, I really like this. Let me see if I can put this on the screen. This is Jessica, I think, somebody from her company anyway, who says the biggest problem with unlimited vacation is actually the teammates who do not take enough vacation. I agree completely. And it actually becomes difficult because it's not tracked in the same way. People, when they have a limited amount of holiday, we call it annual leave in the UK. It's kind of a nice name because it makes you think, I've got only 1 year to use it, which is usually true. And so they say, oh man, I got to take some holiday. Oh, I really wanted to be a Calvinist. I wanted to beat myself up some more. I wanted to show some hustle. Okay, well, I guess I'll take some holiday because it's going to run out. If it's not going to run out, then people don't actually have the motivation. I will just tell one side story. I have something called the Squirrel phone, lots of you know, and you phone the Squirrel phone. You pick up one of these and you push buttons. You talk to Squirrel. My number is on douglassquirrel.com. All of you watching this, welcome to phone me. But I thought when I instituted that, and I have people pay me for it sometimes, so they have priority responses and make sure that they get advice whenever they want it and ad hoc access to me. I thought I would need usage limits. I thought I would need to say, you can't phone me at these times, or it's only this many per week or something like that. The problem with the Squirrel phone is the same as Jessica is saying, that the Squirrel phone is not used enough. People don't call me enough. They're nervous. They say, I'm not sure if I should call. I'm not sure if I should do it. I thought I might be disturbing you. For pity's sake, phone me. I can help you more quickly. We'll get to a better result. That's why I've set it up. And that's why you're paying for it. So it's even worse, Jessica. Sometimes people are paying paying me to get something, and they don't use it enough, and I have to encourage them and push them. So I think we have this pattern happening often, and I would say it's kind of a Puritan philosophy. It comes from this idea that you will be more virtuous if you work harder and you beat yourself up more. And this is the negative cultural connotation. This is what Amanda would not want to encourage, that we have at Japanese companies traditionally, and big consultancies. So the more you can reduce that, the better. I do see sometimes, I should say, people who have been at big consultancies and then start companies or go to work in companies, start a division, tend to bring along that kind of philosophy, and I find it very negative. It takes a long time to get rid of it and to get it out of the norms and the thinking of the team members. Okay, let's see more questions. Flipping over to the right place, which is right over there. Okay, Steve. Hey, Steve. Great to see you. A 20-hour week when I'm a manager doesn't feel achievable. Excellent. I did not pay Steve to ask this question, but it's a wonderful one because it leads to a story that I was doing related to something I was doing just this week. Meetings and admin already take 20 hours. This is pushed on me. Can I push it off? I want to spend 20 hours on the bits of my job I like. Okay, well, great question, Steve. Let me point out, first of all, I don't have a magic wand that will let you only do the parts of your job you like. That I can't do. But let's put that aside for a moment. There are other things which I think you really can get from the situation that you're describing. And this is something I advise someone to do at quite a large company. You guys would all know what this company is, and you're probably many of you customers of this company. And at this company, there's a bit of this kind of consultancy thinking. You have to be at your desk, you have to answer all your emails, you have to be available and visible and so on. And so this person came to me and said, very similar to Steve, oh man, Squirrel, I just have too much in my calendar. I really can't keep track of it. I can't keep up with everything. I'm dropping stuff that I shouldn't. I need more strategic time. And this is something I hear all the time, of course, when I'm coaching people. And so I gave him the assignment that I often do. And I said, I want you to clear your calendar completely. He said, completely? What do you mean? If I don't go to this meeting and that meeting, I'll get in trouble with the boss, and this will happen, that will happen, and so on. And I said, look, if you can get to even half of your meetings cleared, that'll be great. But you won't get there unless you try to clear all of them. So figure out who else can go, who can do the admin who's not you. Steve, you say you're a manager, as this person is. And so there are people you can delegate to who will do the job badly. And that's the crucial thing. That's the bit that's very important. The story I wanted to tell, by the way, this guy has started to clear his calendar and he's getting tremendous results from it already, just in our first week of trying that. But I want to tell another story, a very early story of my career. I had been hired into a company in Silicon Valley. Well, not quite Silicon Valley. It's actually central San Francisco, but it was in the Bay Area. It was at that time, when everybody was building great companies and so on. And you can watch teleprograms like Silicon Valley, which are about this kind of culture, this kind of environment. And so I was sitting in the lunchroom one day, not playing chess, so different situation. And I was sitting on one of those big stools, and I was eating my lunch quietly. And in walked somebody who ran a big part of the company. This is a kind of high, important person with a lot of direct reports, a lot of responsibility in the company. And she walks in, and she's talking to her friend, not talking to me. She didn't know me. I wasn't that important. I'm a little peon there sitting on my stool. And she walks in and says to her friend as she walks in, I'm going to miss all my targets this quarter. Boy, that got my attention. She was not speaking quietly about this. She was doing it in the lunchroom. She knew she was in the lunchroom. She's telling her friend, but she doesn't mind if other people hear it. That's one of the important points. And her friend, of course, said, wow, that seems bad. Why is that? And she said, it's not that bad. I've delegated everything to John. And John's an amazing person. He's really talented, but he doesn't know the amount that I do. He doesn't have the experience, knowledge of the company, and so on. So in our division, we know we're going to miss a bunch of targets because John's going to try real hard and miss. And John knows that, and I know that, and that's okay. And the other person said, it's not okay. What about the rest of the company? We're all going to miss important milestones. We won't get the revenue. The investors will be unhappy. She said, no. I'm spending my time doing something else. What I'm doing is flying to Boston every week. And of course, the friend said, "What's in Boston?" And I said to myself, "What's in Boston?" I've stopped eating my sandwich. I'm just really interested in whatever this person has to say. And she says, "Well, what's in Boston is the company that we're going to buy. And when we buy this company, it's going to transform our whole business. It's going to really increase our revenues, and our marketing will be much better, and our position in the market will be really vastly improved, and so on." And she explained some of the benefits and then wandered out of the lunchroom, having got her coffee or whatever. I had about fallen off my chair at this point. Forget lunch. I was just really shocked. But it really got my attention. At the time, I thought this was terrible management. First of all, she's leaking information. Second, she's telling us about all these horrible things. But guess what I did? I found out what was in Boston. And although it wasn't directly related to what I did, I made sure I prioritized bugs that came in from Boston and found out about it, and made sure I understood, even at my low level, how I could contribute to success in Boston, because I wanted my job. I wanted to make sure the company was successful. And boy, we weren't going to get it from her division. We were going to get it from whatever was happening in Boston. Now, I tell you this story, which is about disappointing people helpfully, because it's exactly how you, Steve, could make this successful for yourself. What I recommend to you is exactly what I recommended to the person I was coaching this week, which is that you go through every single meeting, all the things that you do, all the things that take up the 20 hours, not the things you don't like. Maybe some of those meetings you like, you're still going to get out of them. So maybe there's some other work that would be really good to do. I don't like it, but it needs doing. It would be highly productive. It would be really valuable to the company. Still got to do that, Steve. Sorry, I can't fix that for you. But what you're going to do is get rid of the admin and the meetings that you are not the maximally productive in, and you're going to give that to somebody else who will not do it as well. Remember John in the story, who's taken over the person's division and isn't as good as she is. Keep the lights on, everything will be fine. We're not going to run out of cash, but we're not going to do as well. And what's going to be the result of that? The result is that you, Steve, will spend time on highly valuable, high leverage things, whether you like them or not, that will make the company much more money. And you need to be loud about that. So you need to let the people know, because you're going to decline the meeting. I often do this with people. I'll have them bring up their calendar, and we'll go decline, decline, decline. Oh my God, people are going to be marching down the aisle with pitchforks. They're going to burn me at the stake for not coming to this meeting. And I say, what you need to do is explain to them when they get there, stop them with the pitchforks, hold them off, and explain, I'm doing this, this, and this that's higher value. Now, one of several things will happen. Either they'll say, my thing's higher value than yours, and then you have a very productive conflict. You're having a discussion about the relative value of their meeting versus whatever else it is that you're going to do, Steve, the bits that are highly leveraged and productive. And wherever you get with that discussion, it's going to be useful. You might be convinced their meeting is useful. You go back to the meeting. You say, forget my other thing. Now that's something that you are prioritizing. You say it's valuable. You might get them to say, I'll cancel my meeting. I need to go help you with Boston or whatever it is that's happening. Or you might decide you disagree, and then you can take it to somebody higher, and you can get a clear reading on which thing's most important and what's most valuable. Every one of those outcomes is really valuable. And it came about because you, Steve, said, I'm not going to do these things that are not valued, that are pushed on me. I'm not going to accept them. Instead, I'm going to choose to do something else, be public about it, and have other people have productive conflict with me about it. Now, this takes a lot of courage. And Steve, I think I've met you. I certainly recognize your name. I know you in the community. I think you're a pretty brave person, so I think you could do this. Other people might be saying this, oh my God, Squirrel, this is going to terrify me. Oh, this would be awful. Ask questions on the forum. Ask questions here about how to develop that bravery, how to develop the relationships, the trust, and the mitigation of fear, and the good methods of coordinating and aligning. Those are things I talk about all the time. That's in my book, Agile Conversations, I wrote with Jeffrey Frederick. There's lots of places to learn about that, so I'm not going to go into it here. But the counsel here is, if you want to do what Steve is contemplating, if you want to get to that, which I help people do all the time, then you need that courage. You need the ability to disappoint people helpfully, but it is in fact possible. And so the result is you can spend the 20 hours, which is all you're really spending anyway. You're probably sat in those meetings not being productive. You're not actually getting much done. And so I wouldn't count that against your 20 hours of productivity. There's probably 20 hours in meetings and that are not productive and helpful, and there's 20 hours doing something actually useful. And what I would love to see for Steve and everybody else watching this is to say, look, to be honest, really, I'm working 20 hours a week. That's what I'm actually doing. And you know what I'm going to do is be honest about that and disappoint people helpfully about the other time that I'm wasting, and I'm going to stop doing that. Doesn't mean you necessarily replace it with more work. You might replace it with more breaks, playing chess, doing something that refreshes your brain, getting more sleep, something like that. And then you're going to be highly productive in the rest of the time. Now, there's one other thing I will mention here, which is you need to make sure that people are aware of the value of what you're producing. Because if you just start only showing up 20 hours a week, hey, it's Thursday, I'm going home, see you on Monday, people may be confused by that. They might not understand if the way your company values its employees is by watching their activity. If they're using activity metrics rather than outcome metrics. And that's another thing that you need to shift. I'm pretty sure we have an event on that somewhere in the archive. I know I think I've done 300 of these or something. Somewhere around there we have something on that. If you have questions about that, how to shift to from activity metrics to outcome metrics, ask here, ask on the forum. Happy to discuss more, and I'll point you to wherever it is I talked about that or wrote about it. I remember doing it. Okay, so let me see if I can handle one more question. I think that's the time that we've got and the energy that I've got. So let's have a look at that. That is over here, I think. Nope, I went the wrong place. Having to juggle. There we are. Okay. Miguel asked how to trust an inherited team, specifically when you were an IC, individual contributor there, and you know that some colleagues do not perform. Now, Miguel, you've got a different type of problem, and I really like the question. It absolutely perfectly would come in a different session, but I love answering questions that are off the cuff and a little off the wall. So, Mikael, that's given me a thought, and maybe Laura will remind me about this. We should do a session on what to do when you know people aren't performing. You might or might not have power with that team. And Mikael, it's not clear to me. I know you. I've seen you in the squadron, but I don't know if you're a manager or if you're an IC yourself. You're actually working with the team. But I'll answer for both situations. If the team is yours, then you have you are managing it. Then you have an obligation to the company to deal with the non-productive people. And that's again back to switching to outcome metrics. How would you measure the outcome? How do you know this group is not performing? These individuals are not doing a good job. You know that somehow. There's some evidence you have. You should be sharing that evidence. Now, if you're an individual contributor, if you're working alongside them or in the team or something like that, that gets more difficult, but it's still the same solution. You would want to share the information you have and the evidence you have. Sort of saying, oh, yeah, that squirrel guy, he never does any work. No evidence. No, it's not convincing to anyone. It actually makes it look like you're out to get squirrel, and that doesn't help you. But if you can say, everybody else has completed a task this week or this today, and it's live in production, and it's getting value to customers, and this person hasn't for 3 weeks. You can point out that kind of evidence, or this person is supposed to be making so many phone calls a day. I can observe that what this person is doing is actually sitting at their desk playing Angry Birds and not making the phone calls, not generating the leads. Then that's a useful piece of information for a manager typically to know. They may or may not act. And in that case, you asked how to trust them. Don't trust them because they're not performing. But if they are responsive, if the manager does actually take some action, then you're going to build trust because you know that manager has done something about Angry Birds or about lack of source code commitment or something else, whatever it is the person isn't doing, and you can take some action on that. If you don't take any action, then it's not going to get better. That's the reality, unfortunately. So, Mikael, I hope that's helpful to you. And I don't see any other questions. I think we've dealt with all the questions outstanding, and I've told all the stories I intended to. Yep, checking my notes. Got to disappointing, helpfully, and the story about lunch. I really wanted to make sure to get there. So I hope that's been helpful to you. Whether or not you actually try my experiment, again, I'd love to support somebody in doing it. You want to do it, get in touch. We'll figure out a way to do a case study. But even if you're not ready to go out and actually commit, we're going to work 20 hours a week, everybody go home halfway through Wednesday. Even if you're not going to do that, there's tremendous opportunities to show more hustle and to encourage your team to hustle more in the time when they're actually working. Because as Alan Weiss says, you're actually not working that much. Go and watch actual humans in an actual office or at home or wherever you can actually observe them in their natural habitat. You will observe that they take enough breaks, they do enough other stuff, because it's healthy to do so, that they are not trying to work 40 hours. The people who do are underperforming, right? They are not getting enough done. They're not doing as well as others because they're exhausting themselves. And I don't even want to start on the consultancies where people work 60, 70, 80 hours. They don't really work those hours. If anybody kept honest timesheets, that wouldn't be the case. But they look like they're that productive. If you're willing to bust through that and do something else, then you'll be trying out unlimited holidays. You'll be disappointing people, helpfully in clearing your calendar, and you yourself as well as your team will be much more productive. I hope this has been helpful to you. I had a blast, and I like talking to you guys. I will be back here next week. We'll talk about root cause analysis. Why do all these bad things happen? And how do you deal with the cultural issues that lead to it? Guess what? Sometimes it's overworked people trying to do too many things, trying to be present rather than productive. Maybe that's something you can find out when you come back next week. And we talk about that. I'd love to see you there. If you want to sign up for any of that stuff, it's all down here wherever you point. SquirrelSquadron.com is the place where you can sign up for the events and the forum and the free weekly emails I send. I didn't even mention those. Lots of things I do. It's my way of giving back. And so I'm glad to have you here in the squadron. Glad you've been able to join me today. And I will see you again on the forum next week. Give me a phone call on DouglasSquirrel.com where I have my phone number. I'd love to talk to you. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you.